I can time this just right. Go. Set. Go. I'm coming at you in 24 frames per second through 30 frames per second. Is probably the worst combination of frame rates ever as the camera slips away. I finally found my capture card. Well, I didn't lose it. I finally hooked it up. But the setup is just not permanent. You know, I'd like to put it up there. But the problem is I don't have, there's a couple issues. Mainly that this camera I use too much for other things. So I can't put it in a permanent solution. What I'd like is this camera for the permanent solution. But I need to get an adapter because these batteries last like 30 seconds. And regardless of how long they last, I want it to be permanent. I never want to have to take it off a tripod. I never want to have to... I just want to be able, I want there to always be a camera there, no matter what, that's basically always turned on, or at least just a flip of a switch. So I need to buy a plug adapter that can go into this, which probably isn't even that much. I'm willing to bet I could get one for pretty cheap. Let's do a quick price check. Amazon price check. Bro is still killing me. It was doing so good today. $25. Going for $25. That's pretty reasonable. $25 away from my dreams. But you know, I have that phenomenon where I'll spend like $80 or $100 on a dinner, you know, and not really even. It's a lot of money, but I just won't. Whatever, you know what it is. But then $25, like it'll take me a week to work up the courage to spend $25 on. Don't know why. I don't know why I have that. I wonder what that psychological... There's probably some sort of a name for that psychologically. Like where there's certain things that you have no problem spending money on that are much more expensive than things that you have a harder time spending money on. I've always been that way. I have a really hard time pulling the trigger on purchases. But for good reason, in terms of like... There have been so many times... There have been so many examples that I could give you of things where I've been this close to pulling the trigger to be like, let's buy it. And now, like 3 months later, I never bought it and I have no interest in it. You know what I mean? Never. I look back and I'm like, yeah, I'm glad I didn't buy that. And so now, whenever I have that moment of like, it's like, you know what? If I just wait long enough, I won't want it and I'll just save myself the money. So impulsive spending is so powerful. When I go shopping at a brick and mortar store, I'm not an impulse buyer. I just rarely ever do I see something where I'm like, oh, I'm gonna get that. Food sometimes, like if it's ice cream or you know something sweet or whatever, or soda, or I can be an impulse buyer in that way. I can definitely go into a grocery store and come out with way more than I intended. But in terms of going, like, for example, we were in Disneyland, obviously, last week. And I was walking through the Disney stores. Now, granted, I'm not really a Disney merch person. I've really come to realize that there is a whole culture around Disney merchandise, and some people are into it. So it's not really like they're being foolish by buying very expensive merchandise. They're just into it. Just like people, you know, there's a lot of people who buy Prada and Coach bags. They're not dumb. You know, it's not like you explain to them that that's overpriced and it's just a brand. They're like, yeah, that's the point. I want the brand. And there's a lot of people who are like that with Disney. But point is, I'm saying is I really don't feel any desire when I walk through those stores. Even if I see something where I'm like, oh, that's really cool. It's $30. It's not $30 cool. Like it's not going to be something that I cherish. It's just going to be another, you know, cup or whatever. So that's just, you know, personally, because the way that Disney has their parks marketed, the way that they have their stores marketed is so interesting because if you've ever been to a Disney resort of any kind, I'm sure they're all the same, but Disneyland and Disney World are definitely the same in the sense that there's a billion stores, there's a million gift shops, there's a store at every corner. Everything is a Disney merchandise store. And there's endless amounts of Disney merchandise, but they all pretty much sell the same things with a couple exceptions. So every store you go into, there might be, let's say, 200 pieces of merchandise. And I'd say 100 to 150 of those you've already seen. But there's 50 pieces of merchandise that you've never seen. So it's just enough incentive for you to go to every store because you're like, oh, I want to see what's in here. I want to see what's in here. And even though after a while you are just seeing the same thing over and over, I have a theory that is a marketing tactic or I don't know, a product placement tactic, whatever the right word is, that as you go in and you see these same things over and over, they're basically reminding you of this item over and over. So you might see something and you're like, oh, I like that shirt. And then, but you don't buy it. And then you go into it, you're like, oh, let's go check out this store. And you're looking around, you see that shirt again. And you're like, oh, that's a cool shirt. Or, there's that shirt again. I like it. You go to a store, oh, there's that shirt. And it's just kind of hounding you because it's that same, like, it's kind of those same big ticket items that you just keep seeing over and over. I don't know. That could be wrong, but I have a feeling that there's something that plays into that they're just trying to devise a way where they can get you to go into those stores as many times as possible between the time that you arrive on your vacation to the time that you leave on your vacation. Because you can see very easily that there is a gigantic percentage of their revenue comes from those stores. Because as much of an attraction to those parks are the rides, there is a large demographic of people where there is an equal attraction to the shops. So there is, if they're putting this much thought into the Avatar ride, they are also definitely putting this much thought into the park stores. That's my theory. Again, just a theory, just a guy with a theory. But everything in Disney is very well thought out. Their attention to detail is insane because they're dealing with such an enormous. I think it was last time before we went to Disney World, I read that 90 million people a year visit Disney World. It was either 50 or 90. I might be wrong on that, but I'm going to say 90. I'm pretty confident. Regardless, it's a massive, unimaginable number of visitors. So when you have that kind of people going through your park, each little tiny minute shift difference that you make in the way that each person experiences, each person, the way someone spends their money or thinks about spending their money is going to make a massive change in the amount of profit that they can bring in at the end of each year. So I don't think it's that insane to say that they're putting in more stores, not necessarily to sell more at each individual store, but to sell more of the collective object, because it's all just I forget. There's a word in that in sales where there's like the story of a guy sees a billboard 7 times, he sees a billboard, but he doesn't read it till the 7th time, and then he doesn't buy the product till he sees it the 16th time or something. And that's what I think is in play with those Disney stores, because otherwise there's just no reason to use up that much park real estate for the same small amount of merchandise. On the flip side, there is so much in Disney that is like collectors, like the ears are insane. They make new mugs. They just had their, the Disney World Park just had their 50th anniversary, and they had all this merchandise specifically branded for the 50th year. And there were tons of people there who were there that year so they could get the 50th anniversary mug. And the same thing was now that the Disney as a whole company is coming up on their 100th year. There was so much branded stuff in Disneyland for the 100th year anniversary of the Disney company, and there are people there just there to get their 100th year mug. So it's a whole culture that to me growing up, Disneyland was just about the rides. As an adult, it became more about the experience in the rides. But now that I've been more times as an adult, I'm really seeing that there's a whole other aspect of it to it, that for a lot of people, Disney is about getting stuff in the merchandise, which is totally cool. I got really no gripe with that. It's expensive, but again, so is designer clothes, and I also don't buy those. But I actually I have less respect for that for some reason. I don't know why. I guess because I like Disney. I don't like whatever. Nike, I guess, is an example. Like I would never buy a Nike anything at full price. It's insane to me. All right, that was 11 minutes. Let's go. Oh, I think I have a delay. I had a delay this whole time. Yeah, I have a 6-second delay or 6 millisecond. I have an account written down. Bummer. Oh well. Bye.